Tonight, the dangerous predator who knocked a man unconscious so he could rape his female companion.
My body just froze. I tried to scream. I couldn't scream. I just went into complete shock.
Knowing that I was there, but there was nothing I could have done. It's just a horrible thing.
I can't sleep properly. It's just completely ruined my life.
Can you help get this man off the streets? Hello and welcome to Crimewatch. Unfortunately, Kirsty is unwell and can't be here tonight, but there are lots of important cases that still need your help and a studio full of detectives waiting to take your call. We'll have the latest on that shocking attack in Whitley Bay in just a moment, but first, a quick look at tonight's other appeals. Police from Northern Ireland have reopened their investigation into the murder of Simon Tang, an Oxford graduate who died after being attacked and robbed outside his family's takeaway in 1996.
It's really hard to understand why two people would attack just for so little.
And I'm not the only new presenter tonight. The wanted faces have got a new face. Martin Bayfield served with the Met and Bedfordshire police forces, but you're more likely to recognise him as the former England and British Lions rugby star. Martin, welcome.
Sophie, thank you very much. It's really good to be here. Now, tonight we've got people wanted for attempted murder, drug dealing and assault, and lots of unbelievable CCTV, including this knife man who attacked a shopkeeper and stole 16 grand's worth of diamond jewellery.
We'll have the latest on the 5-year-old hunt for the killers of Adam Regis, the nephew of athlete John Regis. And Matthew is here with the inside story of how a brutal murder was solved.
Yes, it's a case which relied on some long-lost surveillance footage which would unlock the shocking secret at the heart of the investigation.
The team were over the moon when we got this evidence. This video was the golden nugget.
And the precious Lord Nelson artefacts stolen in a museum raid, including part of the Admiral's very own tea service. You might have been expecting to see an appeal on the murder of 80-year-old Jenny Methven in Perthshire, but following significant developments in the inquiry last night, we can't now show you that. Instead, we begin in Whitley Bay near Newcastle. After a night out, a woman and a male friend were making their way home when they met a seemingly friendly man who offered to help them get a taxi. They could never have anticipated what this stranger would do next.
This is the town of Whitley Bay, a resort which comes alive at the weekends when people flock to the clubs and bars along the promenade. In October last year, following a night out, a female thought she was doing the safe thing by sharing a taxi home with a male friend. Neither of them could have imagined they were about to become victims of an appalling crime.
I had been out for a meal, and then after the meal we met up with some people we knew and kind of went for a drink and down to the pubs.
Well, met up with friends, worked way down the strip in Whitley Bay, and then ended up Pier 39, then over to Deep at the end of the night.
Me and my partner got separated, and I bumped into my friend who I know, who helped us look for him.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Yeah, we're going to bump into everyone.
Yeah, it's impossible to find anyone there anyway.
No, I know, if it's still runs anyway, so...
Yeah.
We'd waited to see if anyone could see any of our friends, so we could go back, which we didn't.
And then we realised the nightclub was shutting, so we walked across the promenade to make sure my partner hadn't wandered down there.
And it's last orders are going to get kicked out and walk across there, so...
Yeah, good
we might
point.
as well be good hang around here if we can't. You can't get hold of them on the
right?
phone.
Yeah, not
hey,
too
you
bad.
all right? How's it going?
Freezing.
Cold enough for you?
He'd come over, Then started chatting to my friend about football and things, just general things. And I said I was cold, so we were going to go for a taxi. And he said his friend was picking him up. He was a taxi driver, lives in the same area, did we want to share the taxi cost with him. So we did.
Good, cheers.
See you later.
See you tomorrow.
And we walked towards the taxi.
We'll be waiting ages anyway.
Kind of along here. He picks us up on the other side of the street. He parks here, you see, all the time, so...
Yeah.
All right, what, just down there?
Yeah, just at the end of this lane.
All right.
Yeah.
Right then.
So we started walking up the back lane. And then, all of a sudden, he hit my friend.
Oh my God, Mike!
Oh, man,
What are you doing? Are you all right?
Didn't mean to catch him, it was an accident, I was just messing about.
You're right.
Yeah, you really
However,
got
we're
me,
just
though.
getting a taxi. The taxi's just up here.
Yeah.
Sorry, Max.
You don't hit somebody and then pick them up and say, I'm only joking. It's just not normal. So I was a bit weary and I started, like, lagging behind a bit.
Just go.
Are you all right, though?
Yeah. It's just up here.
Yeah, just up the street.
Oh my God, what are you doing? Oh my God, get out!
My body just froze. I tried to scream. I couldn't scream. I just went into complete shock.
She was raped here, in this alley, while a friend lay unconscious beside her. We believe the attacker deliberately knocked him out so that he could rape the woman.
All he said was, after it had happened, walked away and calmly just said that I deserved it.
It was your fault.
I didn't even feel safe at all. I just felt like I just had to get to some kind of main part so there might have been people around.
I can remember sitting with my hands in my head, looking down, and there was just blood everywhere. I didn't know what had happened. I can remember feeling in case I'd been stabbed or anything. And that's all I can remember.
Hello, calling to the police. Hello? Hello, try and calm down, take a deep breath.
The offender was last seen running down this alley away from the crime scene. But from here, we don't know where he went. Did you see him? We urgently need your help to identify this dangerous man before he attacks again.
I couldn't speak and I was hysterical. I just felt like somebody had took everything off us, everything away from us.
It's like knowing that I was there, but there's nothing I could have done. It's just a horrible thing.
He changed us as a person. I won't go out on my own. Don't like going out in the dark. I won't set foot in a pub ever again in my life. I can't sleep properly. It's just completely ruined my life.
That poor woman. Well, we are joined now by DC Nicola Hollywood from Northumbria Police. It's an awful story, but an unusual case as well.
Yes, this man's had no fear about carrying out this attack on the woman whilst she's with a male friend. The fact that he's knocked out the man so that he could go on and rape this woman is very concerning, and we would appeal to the public for them to come forward if they think they know who this man is.
Now, you've got a really good e-fit of the suspect, haven't you, here?
We do, yes, and he's described as being a white male, mid-20s, between 5'6" and 5'9" tall, with dark brown short hair, chubby face, a local accent, and wearing a dark blue hoodie with white writing across the chest.
When the victims first met him, he was on the promenade with a group of, what, 2 or 3 men?
Yes, that's right. Now, we don't know if these men know who this man is or whether he's just approached them on the seafront like he's approached our victims. So we would appeal to them to come forward because they may have some vital information.
You do have one very short bit of CCTV. What's in it?
We do, yes. The footage was captured on the 16th of October, approximately at 3:45 a.m. and it shows the suspect and the victims walking past Jimmy's bar towards the alleyway.
And we've also got a map here, just in case this jogs anybody's memory. just show us exactly the route that they took?
We do, yes. On the map, outside of Deep, we know that they've come down the alleyway and they've walked down towards Esplanade Place. The first attack has occurred before, and then we know when they've crossed over Esplanade Place, the second attack on the male, and then the female was raped in this area here. The male has then ran off down a lane towards South Parade, but from there we don't know where he went. And again, we're appealing to anybody, if they saw him, please come forward.
Well, a really shocking attack for both those victims. Thank you very much. An incredibly bold attacker who clearly needs to be caught fast. If you can help, 0500 600 600. And if you've been a victim of crime, you can call the Victims Support Line. They're on 0845 30 30 900. Now, Martin has tonight's first collection of wanted faces.
We start tonight with 54-year-old Robert Gamble. Now, this isn't a great picture of him, but take a look at this CCTV, which shows him in a hospital waiting room in Shrewsbury just before he had cocaine worth more than £8,000 removed from his rectum. Gamble has links to Brighton and Croydon. Next is Lubomir Orako. Police want to speak to the 39-year-old in relation to a burglary which happened in Harrow in North London last May. Orako, who's originally from Slovakia, also has links to Bradford and may well be going door-to-door offering building and gardening services. Number 3 is Mohammed Ferdeus. He is wanted in connection with the rape of a woman in Longsight in Manchester and for fraud. The 29-year-old, who's originally from Bangladesh, also has connections to East London. He may now be clean-shaven with a shaved head. And lastly, for now, is Daniel Joe Graham. You may remember this piece of CCTV that we showed you last year of a pub landlord dressed as a French maid being beaten up during a New Year's Eve fancy dress party in Torquay. Well, as a result of the programme, the men responsible were identified as brothers Daniel and Robert Graham. Robert was sentenced last week to 18 months for a fray, but police still need to track down Daniel. The 23-year-old has links to Dorchester, Weymouth and Portugal. Now, all of tonight's faces are on the website bbc.co.uk/Crimewatch. And if you know where they are, call 0500 600 600, or you can text 63399, type crime, leave a space, and then your message.
It's 5 years since teenager Adam Regis was stabbed to death in Plaistow in East London as he walked home from a night out at the cinema. His family are still struggling to come to terms with his death and are hoping that someone watching tonight will have the courage to reveal who killed him.
Yeah, I'm walking now, babes. I'm in Plaistow.
Adam was a peacemaker. Now, if Adam had been given a chance, the Adam I had, my son, he would have actually talked them out of doing it. That's the kind of person he was. Adam had a curfew, because on a Monday he had a French GCSEs. And I said to him, no later than 8 o'clock, because you have to study. Okay, Mom. Love you, Mom.
That one was good, though. Yeah.
On the night he was murdered, Adam had been out with his friends to the cinema.
You don't have to walk me home, you know. Don't worry, man. I'll walk you home.
He'd insisted on walking them home to make sure they got back safely. At 9:13, Adam and his best friend were picked up on camera walking down Green Street, past the West Ham football ground.
Today's been good, you know. We should do it again. We have to do it again.
But on the corner of Tunmarsh Lane and Kingsland Road, the friends went their separate ways. On his own now, and just a few minutes from home, Adam called his girlfriend.
Yeah, I'm all right, babes. I'm in Plaistow. I'm just walking up now.
But within moments, he was attacked. Adam was stabbed with a blade so large that it went through his arm, into his chest, and pierced his heart.
I said, nah, it's not him. I said, he's got lost. Tell him Monday when I had to identify his body. Nothing could have prepared me for that. It's hard to think people can actually live with that. It just doesn't seem possible.
This CCTV shows Adam walking along Kingsland Road and two men following close behind him. Police think these men could be his killers.
It makes me sad to think that people know something as evil and as bad as that could have happened. And even though they didn't know Adam, they've heard stories about Adam. And to think no one can come forward to tell us who killed Adam. Why?
Why indeed? Well, acting DCI Andy Kelly from the Met is with me now. Just awful for Adam's mother. 5 years on, and she desperately needs some answers.
Yes, and we strongly believe that this anniversary may be an important turning point in this case. It's now 5 years since Adam was murdered, and the people that were involved, or the people that they may have confided in, may have moved on in their lives since then. Their allegiances may have changed, their loyalties may have changed, and they may now be able to give the information they felt they couldn't give to us 5 years ago. So I would appeal directly to them. It is not too late to come forward. Please tell us what you know and let us solve this case.
And what you're appealing for tonight is specific information on certain individuals.
Yes, we have CCTV footage of several of the people we believe are in concern in the street where Adam was attacked. There were 4 people on foot. 2 of them were following directly behind Adam just before he was attacked, and 2 others were seen shortly thereafter running away in a nearby street.
Adam's mother just said why. Why was he killed? Are you any closer to finding out what the motive might have been?
Well, there's also a car that we're very interested in, and this car was going around the local streets for several hours before this happened, apparently looking for somebody. So Adam may have actually been the victim of mistaken identity, because I would like to emphasise Adam was a completely innocent victim in this case. This car was a Volkswagen Scirocco Mark II, a bronze-coloured car, quite a rare car, even back in 2007. But we would certainly like to find out who the driver of that car was and where that car is now. It was a rare car then, and it's even rarer now.
Now, you are offering a reward, aren't you?
Yes, there still is a reward of £20,000 for anybody who gives information leading to the arrest and conviction in this case.
Thank you very much. Adam would have celebrated his 21st birthday this summer, and his loss has clearly been devastating for his family. If you know anything, call the studio now on 0500 600 600, or call the independent charity Crime Stoppers anonymously, 0800 555 111. Now, Martin has the first of tonight's CCTV.
And we begin with that unbelievable raid on a jeweller's in Cornwall. Inside a small jeweller's shop in Truro on a Saturday lunchtime last December. The shop owner is alone when a man in a woolly hat carrying a stylish Hessian bag from the local library walks in. But this guy's had enough borrowing. He's here to steal. After browsing the displays for a few minutes, he suddenly produces a knife and threatens the shopkeeper. The victim backs away, trying to reach a panic button, but the knife man follows him and then attacks him. Despite the shopkeeper's attempts to fend him off with a broom, the attacker eventually forces him to open the window display. The thief then grabs his haul and scarpers, even threatening passers-by as he does so. This man stole diamond jewellery worth more than 16 grand. Be a gem and name him tonight. It's gone 11 p.m. at London's Leicester Square tube station on a Friday night last September. A woman makes her way along the Northern Line platform towards a group of men, including her boyfriend, who's involved in a disagreement with a man wearing a dark jacket and blue shirt. As he passes her, he violently shoves the woman onto the train track. The victim's boyfriend then grabs him, pulling off his jacket as they grapple. Other passengers step in and separate the pair, and the attacker makes off. The woman could easily have been killed. Tell us who pushed her. inside a high-class antique shop during the early hours of a Monday morning last October in Hazelmere in Surrey. But this is more Antiques Ram Raid than Antiques Roadshow, as a gang of hooded men batter the shop door using a huge piece of wood and a 4x4 vehicle. But despite their high-tech entry strategy, it takes them a good few tries to get in. 1, 2, 3. When they finally break through, they target the display cabinets, filling holdalls full of silver worth more than £20,000. They make off the way they came, but they're not done yet. And a few seconds later, the greedy gang come back for more. Eventually, they leave for good and make off in this stolen Mitsubishi Shogun, which was later found abandoned nearby. This is the 4th time the family-run business has been attacked. Help us unmask these ram raiders tonight. Everything you've just seen is on the website, and if you recognise anyone, just call 0500 600 600 or text on 63399. Type crime, leave a space, and then your message.
Time now for some updates on previous appeals.
And we start with news about an appeal we made in our last programme. 79-year-old grandmother Nellie Geraghty died after she was the victim of a robbery during which her handbag containing her husband's ashes was stolen. Well, last month, a 32-year-old man from the Shaw area of Oldham was arrested and charged with manslaughter and robbery. We will, of course, let you know how that case progresses.
Now take a look at this CCTV of a man robbing 2 banks in Nottingham, which we showed you in December. After seeing himself on the programme, 59-year-old Victor Franklin from Lincoln handed himself into police, and just 1 month later he was sentenced to 5.5 years in prison. Excellent news.
Updates on a couple of wanted faces now. Firstly, Graham Benjamin Phillips, who was wanted for the possession and importation of indecent images of children, who was on the board back in November. Well, on the Saturday following the programme, Phillips was tracked down to a local league football game where he was refereeing. He was arrested, and earlier this month he pleaded guilty to 37 offences and was sentenced to 2 years and 8 months in prison. Now, this man, 30-year-old Stephen Farey, was on the board in December after he deliberately drove a car at a police officer in Kent, seriously injuring him. Well, shortly after the programme, Farey was arrested and charged with grievous bodily harm with intent to resist arrest, as well as dangerous driving. On Friday, he was sentenced to 7 years in prison. Great results.
This CCTV shows a train driver being attacked at Barking Underground Station in London on Easter Sunday last year. When we showed it to you in July, several viewers were able to identify the men involved. 22-year-old Charlie Davis on the left pleaded guilty to GBH and has been jailed for 23 months. And Lee Clements, 24, on the right, pleaded guilty to common assault and was given a 12-month community order.
Some more rail-related CCTV now. We showed you this footage in December from Hackney Central Station, capturing a man hitting, pushing and even throwing his bike at a fellow passenger last August. Well, as a direct result of your calls, he was identified as 24-year-old Thomas Broom from Kentish Town. And earlier this month, he was sentenced to 250 hours of community service and ordered to pay his victim £300 in compensation. Great stuff.
And lastly, this rather risque CCTV, which was shown on our sister programme, the Crimewatch Roadshow, last summer. The naked owner of the car valiantly manages to stop a thief stealing his motor early one morning in Salford last April. Well, the thief was identified as 21-year-old Aaron Sebastian Brannan, and in January he pleaded guilty to aggravated burglary and was sentenced to 5 years in prison. Good job.
Right, still to come tonight, the father of 2 murdered by masked raiders.
Buddy! Ow! Ah! I've just been robbed. Please help me.
We've terrifying CCTV showing the moment a shopkeeper is threatened by a gunman in Derby.
You think I won't shoot you? I'll give you 3 seconds.
Matthew has the story of how a police investigation into an apparent killer burglar took an unexpected turn.
Our greatest fear was that we had a killer burglar, but it just didn't add up.
And those incredibly rare Admiral Lord Nelson artefacts stolen from a museum. Could you help track them down? But first, Matthew has the latest on what's been happening on the phones so far tonight.
Sophie, thanks. It feels really busy on the floor. Let's interrupt Nicola, who's leading that rape investigation. Nicola, what's come in so far?
Yes, we've had a number of calls, which is very good, and we've also been given a name, which is excellent because it will help us to progress the investigation.
A name, that's very promising. Tell us a bit more about, you have an EFIT, you have CCTV. Were there witnesses? This was late at night.
Yes, it was late at night, but that area is particularly busy with nightclubs, and there were a number of people in the area at the time. So again, we're appealing to anybody who think they may know this person or may have saw him on the night to please come forward.
We were looking at that CCTV. It remains on the website. It goes without saying, this is an incredibly dangerous individual.
It is, yes, and it's a very unusual case for this man to attack a woman whilst she's with another man. So that's why we're appealing for the public's help to please, you know, identify this person to prevent this from happening to anybody else.
OK, I'll let you get back to those calls. This is a man who could strike again. Please, if you have information, do call in. Sophie.
Thanks. Now, an urgent update on an appeal that we made in September. You may remember these two men, Kirk Bradley and Anthony Tony Downs, who featured on our Wanted Faces board after escaping from a prison van which was on the way to Liverpool Crown Court, where they were both on trial for firearm offences last July. Well, Detective Inspector Mark Kameen from Merseyside Police joins me now, and since then, some developments.
Yes, that's right. Just 2 weeks ago, both males were found guilty at Woolwich Crown Court in their absence for all the offences for which they were charged. Just 24 hours after that time, Tony Downs was found in the Netherlands and was arrested by Dutch police. At the time of his arrest, he was found in possession of this loaded .44 Magnum handgun. Now, Kirk Bradley remains on the run at this time, and tonight we are appealing for any information regarding his current whereabouts.
So there is one thing we have to stress, and that is that Kirk Bradley is an extremely dangerous individual.
Yes, indeed, that's correct. Kirk Bradley was part of a very violent gang who were responsible for at least 14 separate attacks during a 2-year period. Some of those attacks involved an innocent paramedic being mistakenly shot in his own home. Another man had a leg amputated after being shot in a phone box. These males were prepared to use firearms and army-issue hand grenades in order to continue their gang war. And the seriousness and levels of violence that they used were reflected in the life sentences that both received in their absence at court last week.
And there are some distinguishing features that Kirk Bradley has that people possibly could use to identify him.
Yes, that's correct. Kirk Bradley has a very strong Liverpool accent. He also has a scar on the left side of his face, and he has some scarring to his right hand as well. I must stress, though, that this is a very dangerous individual, and I would urge any members of the public that do see him not to approach him, but to contact the police on the usual emergency numbers.
OK, thank you very much. So, do you have any information on Kirk Bradley's whereabouts? If so, you can call us here in the studio on 0500 600 600, or you can speak directly to Merseyside Police on 0151 777 5699, 0151 777 5699. Time now for some more Wanted Faces with Martin.
We start this section with Ibrahim Kadir. The 21-year-old is wanted in connection with the attempted murder of his ex-girlfriend in Sheffield in June 2010, during which she was stabbed in the chest, stomach and arms. Kadir, who's an Iraqi Kurd, has links across South Yorkshire. He's considered dangerous, so if you see him or know where he is, call the police immediately. Next is Peter Phillips. Detectives want to speak to the 56-year-old in relation to the grooming of a young girl over the internet and the possession of indecent images of children. Phillips, who has the names Rose and Janet tattooed on his right bicep, has links to Gwent, Derbyshire and Merseyside. Number 7 is Matthew Stewart Lovell. He's wanted in connection with the supply of cocaine and ecstasy worth more than £65,000 in Newcastle. 34-year-old Lovell also has links to Liverpool, Guernsey and Spain. And finally, this is Shakir Al-Fatouri. The 41-year-old registered sex offender is wanted after failing to comply with the conditions of his licence. He speaks little or no English and is known to have links to South Wales and London. Now call 0500 600 600 if you recognise any of tonight's faces, or text 63399. Type crime, leave a space and then your message. And of course, they all stay online at bbc.co.uk/Crimewatch until they're caught.
Now, you probably know that the Police Service of Northern Ireland used to be the Royal Ulster Constabulary. It's one of many things that have changed during the transition from conflict to peace. And with the ending of the Troubles, detectives are now able to devote more time and resources to revisiting unsolved cases, such as that of 28-year-old Simon Tang. He was killed 16 years ago after masked robbers attacked him at his family-run takeaway in Carrickfergus.
Help me.
Oh, good.
Can you call an ambulance?
Ambulance urgently.
The summer of 1996 was a difficult and restless time in Northern Ireland. The Drumcree parade ended in violence and bloodshed. An IRA bomb ripped through Manchester, and the Good Friday Agreement was still 2 years away.
And in this quiet town of Carrickfergus, 12 miles from Belfast, the brutal murder of an innocent father of two shocked the local community.
We started dating in 1992. I liked his quietness, his modesty. He was a good man. Simon studied in Northern Ireland at first, and then went to Oxford University to study architecture. After he graduated, he returned to Northern Ireland to help run his father's business.
Simon was very easygoing, wasn't he?
Yeah.
He could have, if anything needed done, he would do it. He would put his hand to it, whether it was mop the floor, do the dishes, put a rice on, whatever. I think it was one of the best jobs I've ever had because it was so easygoing, it didn't feel like work.
You would always remember Simon just working away and having a laugh with the rest of the people that worked in the place.
Simon, he had a lot to live for. He was so proud and excited when he found out that Betty was pregnant again. And then when the baby was born, oh, he was as proud as punch, so he was.
He was a good father and husband. We loved each other very much. And when I was with him, I felt very blessed.
Simon was working as usual on Sunday, the 23rd of June. It had been a warm summer's evening, and I know people were out and about in the town enjoying the last of the weekend. But not everyone was out to have fun.
Around midnight, two men were seen walking up Ella Street in the direction of the Good Future takeaway. Who were they, and where were they going?
Goodbye, Simon. Oh, good night. How's things, Lou? Don't worry, I'm nearly done. I've just been robbed. Simon Tang, please help me.
Simon called me around 12:30 a.m. and told me he'd been robbed. I said I would come down and see him now.
Is he okay? What happened?
I asked if he was hurt and how many people attacked him. He told me he thought there were possibly two people who hit his head with a hard object. When I saw him injured, I was very worried, and it broke my heart.
Simon had been seriously injured and was rushed straight into surgery. Moments later, a nurse received an intriguing call.
Hello, Mater Hospital, A&E. The Chinese man who was beaten up in Carrickfergus. Do you know how he is? Are you a relative? Hello? Hello?
Simon's attackers had hit him over the head with such force that he suffered a heavy bleed on his brain and a fractured skull. Tragically, his condition deteriorated and he died on the Tuesday morning.
When I heard what happened, I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe something like that happens in your own hometown.
It's just so sad. Such a waste. Complete waste.
Being a mother and father at the same time when raising my sons was very hard. I felt so sorry that my sons lost their father when they were so young.
It's really hard to understand why two people would attack just for so little. Losing a dad is very, very harsh. That I had to grow up without a dad and my mum just bringing us up by herself.
Nearly 16 years have gone by, but Simon's murder has not been forgotten. And I now need the people of Carrickfergus to find the courage to name those who were responsible.
I originally had a very happy family, 2 sons and a husband. But after Simon's death, my happy family is gone.
DI Peter Montgomery of the Police Service of Northern Ireland is with me now, 16 years after his murder. A lot has changed, as you say, but you looked at that initially as a robbery. Now you think it was a racist attack.
Well, what constitutes a racially motivated crime is now clearly defined for the police. And based on the information that I have received into the inquiry, and also in conversations that I have had with the family of Simon Tang and the Chinese Welfare Association, I'm satisfied that I am dealing with a racially motivated homicide.
And there's one person you'd really like to speak to. We saw in the reconstruction that woman who rang the hospital really quite a short time after he was attacked.
Yes, a woman rang the Mater Hospital shortly after Simon arrived at the hospital, and I believe she knows the identity of Simon's killers and knows exactly what happened that night. And I'm appealing directly to her to come forward and to speak to me. Now, I understand that she may have been frightened at the time, but I just wish to reassure her that I will explore all options available to me to get her evidence in front of a court.
You still need lots more information, lots more people to come forward. Where do you think that those 2 men went that night after the attack?
They headed off in the direction of the North Road in Carrickfergus, and they may have dropped their masks there. And I'm appealing to anyone who saw those 2 men on the North Road to contact the police.
It's a long time ago, it's 16 years ago. What you need now, though, is for people to have the courage to come forward with fresh information.
Yes, there are people in Carrickfergus, including friends and family of the 2 people involved in this attack, who have information that could bring the killers to justice. Now, I'm appealing directly to everyone in Carrickfergus to come forward, give me that evidence, so that I can get justice for Simon and his family and to rid Carrickfergus of these 2 racist killers.
Thank you very much. Well, Simon's wife and 2 children have spent 16 years looking for answers. Can you help them by naming his killers? 0500 600 600 if you can. Or, of course, there is Crime Stoppers. You can call them anonymously. 0800 555 111. Matthew.
Next, a fresh appeal for information on a case we've covered several times before. Last Sunday marked 3 years since the disappearance of Claudia Lawrence. North Yorkshire Police, who are treating the case as suspected murder, are once again appealing for information to try to discover her fate.
Concern grows for a 35-year-old woman who's been missing for a week.
Police here in York are saying that the disappearance of Claudia Lawrence is completely and utterly out of character. She was last...
On Wednesday, the 18th of March 2009, Claudia finished her morning shift as normal. She was a chef at York University's Goodricke College. The last confirmed sighting was at around 2:45 p.m. when a friend stopped to give her a lift home. dropped Claudia outside her house at around 2:50. Claudia spoke to both her mum and dad that night, and when she spoke to her mum at just after 8, all appeared well. She was also texting a friend, and the last time they exchanged texts was at 8:23 p.m. The following morning, Claudia did not arrive at work. There was no sign of a struggle at her home, and the only things missing were a blue Caramel rucksack, her Samsung D900 phone, and Chef White's. Her phone powered down at around midday.
Good afternoon. My name's Peter Lawrence. I'm very concerned about my daughter.
Fine. And what's your daughter's name?
Claudia.
So what else do we know? Well, on Thursday, the 19th of March, the day Claudia failed to turn up at work, there was a sighting of a man and a woman facing each other on Melrose Gate Bridge at 5:35 a.m. And 20 minutes later, another witness saw a couple having what appeared to be an argument on University Road. Officers are keen to find out who these people are and whether either of the women seen was Claudia. Well, despite the time that's passed since Claudia disappeared, detectives and her family are keen to stress that the case is very much active and that anyone with any information about what happened to her should get in touch on 0500 600 600. There is more information, including full reconstructions of Claudia's last known movements, on the website.
Time now for some more CCTV with Martin.
And we start this time with an audacious and terrifying criminal who struck in Derby in the middle of the day. And unusually, we can hear him as well as see him. It's a Wednesday lunchtime last June. A man in a distinctive blue hoodie approaches a mini-market on a quiet residential street. He immediately pulls out what looks like a handgun. The CCTV audio capturing his voice as he threatens the terrified female cashier.
Think I won't shoot you. I'll give you 3 seconds. 1, 2, come back here.
But despite his aggression, the attacker quickly loses his nerve and runs out empty-handed. Stop him doing this or worse again and tell us who he is. A man in a white baseball cap and T-shirt walks into the White Horse pub in Southend-on-Sea on a Tuesday evening, also last June. While inside, he starts taunting another customer who has cerebral palsy. When a fellow drinker steps in to stop him, the man in white smashes a pint glass in his face before legging it out of the door. The victim needed more than 20 stitches and is permanently scarred. Name his violent attacker tonight. It's a Tuesday lunchtime at a bookie shop in Worthing last May. As 2 of the staff deal with customers, the third cashes up one of the tills. She doesn't notice, but a balding man in a blue shirt hanging around the fruit machines has got his eye on her. As the cashier is occupied, he approaches the counter and cheekily snatches a wad of notes before running off. It looks like his gamble has paid off, but it's time to end his lucky streak. Name, please. Remember, all the CCTV stays online until they're caught. If you recognise anyone, you know what to do. 0500 600 600 or text on 63399.
It was December 1999, just before the turn of the millennium, when Linda Anders was found murdered on her kitchen floor in Merseyside. Police immediately launched an investigation to catch the intruder, who they believed had not only killed Linda, but had also assaulted her severely disabled husband.
It was just 5 days before Christmas 2000 when Linda Anders was found stabbed to death on her kitchen floor on the outskirts of Liverpool. her disabled husband, Malcolm, was found lying outside the house, injured and distressed.
I received a call to say that a victim had been found in what appeared to be a burglary. She'd been attacked, a vicious attack, multiple head wounds, and the murder weapon was a knife which had been very cruelly left embedded in her neck. The house had been ransacked. I was also informed there'd been a spate of burglaries in the area, so our greatest fear was that we had a killer burglar.
Malcolm was taken to hospital. He was badly shaken, but agreed to a police interview in a bid to catch his attacker, the man who must also have murdered his beloved wife.
Malcolm Anders was registered disabled and had clearly been involved in some form of industrial accident many years previously.
Malcolm told police he'd visited the library that afternoon.
And when he came home, he saw the back gates of the house was open. So, seeing that, he went through the gates to see what was going on.
The couple's son had arrived home from work to find his father lying injured on the ground and his mother's body on the kitchen floor. Despite his injuries, Malcolm was able to work with police to create an e-fit of his attacker. Armed with a thorough description of the killer, the investigation was now in full flow. But the more forensic officers and detectives examined the crime scene, the more things just didn't add up.
They treated all the surfaces with a protein dye, and it became apparent that the offender or somebody had cleaned the scene.
It seemed bizarre that the murderer had wasted precious getaway time cleaning up.
Something's not right here.
And that wasn't the only thing bothering detectives.
I'm not even sure anything's actually been nicked.
Parts of Malcolm's story were confusing detectives too.
Why would a burglar kill one individual and then leave a second witness in a position that they could actually do an e-fit?
And police also found a problem with Malcolm's alibi. He claimed he'd spent the afternoon at the library, but although it had rained that day, a police officer noticed the ground under Malcolm's car was still dry.
That car had not been anywhere.
And police psychologists thought Linda's heavy injuries bore the hallmarks of a domestic, emotionally motivated murder. Malcolm was beginning to look more like a suspect than a victim. But there was a major problem with that theory.
My greatest obstacle to get over at that stage was Malcolm Anders' physical capabilities. How a man with such disabilities could overpower Linda, who was a fit and healthy woman, and actually inflict such horrendous injuries with very little injury to himself.
Linda's skull had been pierced 15 times. Malcolm was surely physically incapable of such a forceful attack. So police began to delve back into his history.
He became registered disabled quite some years before the murder, and we tracked back that he used to work at Ford's and that he'd been involved in an industrial accident.
Detectives discovered that Ford had used private investigators to check out Anders' disability claims. And when detectives visited the investigator's office, they uncovered the shocking truth.
Unfortunately, the file had been destroyed some years ago, but when they checked, they actually found that there was just a videotape.
Well, never.
This was gold dust. It was absolutely fantastic. It showed Malcolm Anders attending a medical examination. The video recordings showed fantastic mobility, clearly nothing wrong with him. He then goes in the house, gets his walking sticks, jumps in the car, and then drives to wherever this medical examination was going to take place. The next thing is he gets out of the car, Oscar-winning performance, hobbles over to the surgery, and then you have the return journey to the car where he furtively looks around, throws his sticks in the back, and then drives off.
It was the breakthrough detectives needed. Not only did the footage prove that Anders was physically capable of killing his wife, it showed he was a liar. He'd been deceiving everyone, not just during the murder investigation, but for the last 10 years. The case was building around the new picture of Anders as a benefits cheat. Police think Linda was about to leave him. Perhaps she threatened to expose him as a fraud. But whatever his reasons, Malcolm Anders decided to murder his wife, convinced he'd be able to cover his tracks.
There'd been a spate of burglaries in the area, well reported in the local press, and he decided to take advantage of it. Having killed Linda, he's then callously cleaned himself up to eradicate any forensic evidence, and he's then gone through the house, disturbing it in what he thought a burglar would do. He's then gone outside, set himself up on the floor, scraped his face, and then he's just waited for his son to come home.
But his clean-up attempts weren't as good as he had thought. Police had noticed some unusual bruising on his hands when they interviewed him. An expert was able to show that these bruises were an exact match of the brass rivets on the handle of the murder weapon. And forensic work had also found a speck of Linda's blood on Anders' shirt. 10 years of fakery and deception had culminated in a brutal murder. And with that murder, Anders' web of lies had finally started to unravel.
Malcolm Anders thought he was very clever. He'd lived this life of deception for 10 years and got away with it. But what you can't do is cater for the unknown. There is no such thing as a perfect crime. There will always be an aspect that you have no control over.
And Matthew, that's exactly what happened. He really thought he could outwit the police, though, didn't he?
He did. He duped everyone about his disability and thought he could do the same with the murder. He was a vile character. He had Linda waiting on him, hand and foot, whilst he pretended he was in agony. He conned the taxpayer out of about £100,000 in benefits. He had his car paid for, he had his mortgage paid for, he had a stair lift fitted in the house, and he was so cocky, he set up a charity to advise other people on how to milk the system. And then, in the months leading up to the murder, anonymous letters had been sent to Malcolm and to Linda's dance teacher alleging that she'd been having an affair. It turned out that Malcolm was the one sending those letters. He was already trying to blacken her name as he was planning what he thought would be the perfect murder.
There was some great detective work, though, wasn't it, that broke the alibi?
Yeah, the surveillance video was dynamite, but even before they got there, bit by bit, they unpicked his story. There was a great example early on. This is one of the pictures from the crime scene. Now, the killer had washed his hands at the sink after the murder and not quite turned the tap off. See that drip? Detectives noticed that and noticed the 1.5 inches of water in the bowl. Now, do you remember the concept of the ancient Egyptian water clock? That if you have a constant flow of water, even drip like that, you can work out how long it would take to get that 1.5 inches. You're almost like measuring time. Detectives did that. It was 90 minutes. Now, Malcolm's story, that he was in the alleyway for 20 minutes after the killer fled, couldn't have been true. There was too much water in that bowl. So right from the start, they were onto him.
A terrible crime, a horrific crime. He's got life for it, hasn't he?
Yeah, I mean, incredibly, despite all of that evidence, he pleaded not guilty. But he got life, as you said, a minimum of 16 years. The judge described him as a manipulative liar, exactly the opposite to Linda, who was warm, who was gentle, who was kind, a bubbly sort of person. Her family say they'll never get over what he did.
Matthew, thank you. Now, have a look at this. It may be tiny, but its historical significance is huge. It is a mourning ring which was made to commemorate the funeral of Admiral Lord Nelson. It is more than 200 years old and is one of fewer than 60 that were made. Now, last month, a ring almost identical to this one was stolen from a museum in Norwich, and tonight officers are appealing for your help in tracking it down. Well, Detective Inspector Andy Ninham from Norfolk Constabulary is leading the investigation. Tell me what happened.
Well, the ring's one of a number of Nelson-related artefacts in the Norwich Castle Museum. On the 25th of February this year, a member of the public was at the museum with their family and noticed a cabinet undone, drew it to the attention of the museum staff, who checked it and found a number of things were gone.
It's a beautiful ring. They are beautiful rings. It's very distinctive as well.
Yes,
isn't
absolutely. Yeah, it's as you can see, it's gold. It's got black enamel with this very distinctive double crown design. The initials N and B, and the word Trafalgar on it. So it really is distinctive.
And this is not all they took, is it?
No, not at all. This is similar to a plate that was taken. That's from Nelson's own tea service. It dates to about 1802. It's worth about £10,000 on its own.
All these things, they're all worth an awful lot of money. These went missing as well, didn't they?
Yeah, absolutely, yes. There are 2 bronze medallions and an identical set to this in a tin, which are gilt, all commemorating some of his battles and so on.
But obviously this has got monetary value, but that's not what this is all about. You want to get these back. They've got historical value too.
Absolutely, very much. There's a real sort of cultural significance, not only for Norfolk, where Nelson's from, but also obviously nationally and even internationally. So we're appealing not only for somebody to come forward to tell us who committed the crime, but also if those items have been offered on sale to them, then we'd like to know about it very much.
As you say, they are incredibly distinctive, aren't they? Well, let's
Absolutely.
hope you find them. Thank you very much. If you have any information or have been offered any of these items, call now on 0500 600 600. Time now for a last quick update on what's come in on the phones from Martin.
Yes, we've had some fantastic response. You'll remember that horrific ordeal and rape in Whitley Bay. And the EFIT that we showed you, well, we have had dozens of calls relating to that, providing several names. Detectives are going to work their way through that. Now, what the police really want to hear is from anyone who was on the seafront in the early hours of that Sunday morning on October the 16th last year. They're desperate for that information. Lubomir Arako, face number 2 on the wanted faces. We've had 2 calls suggesting the same location for him. Mohamed Faradous, face number 3. Possible locations of where he may be staying at the moment. And the Adam Regis murder appeal, we have names and information on that distinctive Volkswagen Scirocco. Excellent news.
Indeed. Well, that's all we have time for now, but don't forget that all of tonight's reconstructions, wanted faces and CCTVs stay online until they're caught. It's all at bbc.co.uk/Crimewatch, and it's worth knowing that the videos can now be viewed on smartphones and tablets. The phone lines will stay open until midnight tomorrow. We're back again in 35 minutes after the news with the very latest on what I can see has been a very busy night. Until then, goodbye.